Script order says strike the gavel, and so I have officially struck the yellow pin. Let me call this Board of Trustees work study meeting, the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees, to order at 6 p.m. on September 19th, 2024. For the record, all board members are here: Tara Habacek, Ileana Garza Rosas, Kim Brady, Cassandra Hatfield, Marjorie Barnes, Carolyn Benavides, and me, Randy Shackman. This means that we constitute a quorum and we may conduct business on behalf of the district. First item that we have on our agenda for the evening is audience for guests. I'm kind of guessing there may not be any, but maybe something came in. Nothing. Okay, so we have not had any requests for audience for guests. If you are watching online or you're interested in board operations, audience for guests is when we invite community, stakeholders, and others to come and talk to us. To participate in audience for guests, you need to fill out a form. It's online, and submit it prior to the meeting. And we hope that we will see some of you at some of our upcoming meetings. Next, we'll proceed to our work study discussion items. They are item 3, and 3A is board subcommittees. And so we move along there. Dr. Eldridge, would you like to explain the documents?
Okay, so in your folder, I have given you copies of the first document in your folder. Has this yellow tab across it, and it is our board committees. So these are our district committees. So I wanted you to review those and just make sure they're correct. And there's also certain meeting dates. The next document, and they're labeled in the corner that say document 1, document 2. So we're on document 1, which looks like this. And this was developed by Cassandra Hatfield. And so I told her I just redid it in our school colors. So I also made sure that everybody's name is, so if any of the names are not correct, and I do believe that there was an officer meeting recently, and you all, as officers, discussed that you wanted the committees to now be called district liaison committees. Is that correct?
That is correct. The thought process, and Tara and Kim, you certainly can add to this if you'd like. We wanted there to be a distinction between these district liaison roles that we play and the subcommittees or the committees. And so to create that wall of separation, that was what our thinking was.
So is that, did I get that correct? Is that correct? This is district liaison and the other ones are our board committees?
I think it's backwards, right? The liaison, we're supposed to be the ones who are the ex officio members, because we're
That's
actually a
the
liaison,
district.
the district committees.
So this sheet right here, document 1, is subcommittees?
Oh, on paper it's backward, is what you
Yes,
meant.
yes.
Sorry.
Because we're actually acting as liaisons on those ex
Okay.
officio committees.
Okay, so this sheet is district liaison.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And then these are the subcommittees. We didn't want to cause confusion about voting member versus not voting member.
Okay, so we need to change this where it says district liaison to subcommittees. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Just keep this sheet to the left, and then I'm going to explain the documents, because the subcommittees were created, and I have given you, like document 2, I want you all, and if you want to do it tonight or you want to turn it back in, but my thinking was that we need to have what the committee's purpose is, that, you know, we've never really defined them, and then how often you meet, who's going to be the chair of the committee, and I thought that also we should probably talk about the term of service, and this is all up to you all. We just created the document. So again, I put the committees at the very top of the page, and so each committee has a officer has a planning page for us to write that. So we will take all of this information and put it in our board portal. So we will always have historical documentation of what the committees are and what you do on that committee and how often you should meet, and should it be a 1-year or 2-year term for that committee. So that's document 2. Document 3, I kind of gave you some guidelines, and looking at other districts of what the roles and responsibilities and the guidelines for each committee, so you could just fill these document 2 in. So looking at other websites, they defined, here's the governance definition of what that group actually does, some goals, some compliance, and as you go through this document, you can see what it says in leadership evaluation, finance. It was just some terminology to give you a framework of defining the committees that you all have defined as subcommittees. And then the last document, document 4, is the committee report that you will give at the board meetings. And so this will be electronic, so you will check, is this a board committee, which I will change, because that's now district liaison, and then I'll put subcommittee. So you can check which one, and then we will also keep these so that we can keep an update of when you all presented what the committees. So if you're on policy and you're the policy chair and you give the update of what you all discussed, we will also keep a running tab on our board portal of when you actually reported back to the rest of us and to our public entity. So, so do you guys want to take like 15 minutes and get with your group to fill these out, or do you want to process it and come back with what you think? What do you recommend?
Due to the overlap where some people are on more than one committee, it's a little hard for us to break up and say who's going where. I really think that, and definitely want your input into the thinking process of this. So my thought is to ask you to take this material home and to take the next week and think through. Tara and Kim have already submitted some information to me about possibilities of roles and service, and can we each think about what we want these committees to do? Jot an idea or two. You don't need to, it doesn't need to be super extensive, but what are your general thoughts on what you think this committee is doing? And then working with staff here, I'll help synthesize all of that, report it back to you so we all see that and come up hopefully with an agreement on what it is we're actually doing. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense. I think my question is on whether or not this pauses the work. I mean, we have a long list of board operating procedures to do, and we have some policy changes that we need to make from something we found in April meeting, I think. I don't remember, April or May. So is all of it on hold until this is resolved, or
I'm hoping to have all this information back, then reviewed and back to you, and so we can have it at the October board meeting and bless it all, so that we are moving forward fairly quickly.
So if you serve on policy committee, how long is that? Is that a year, 2 years? Because I checked back to our board operating procedures, and we don't have subcommittees in there, like the rules.
But do we have 7 subcommittees, or do we have 3?
Well,
Because the list of people are different across all of these, and I thought we had 3, and that the governance was working on policy in the BOP, and leadership and evaluation was working on those 3 buckets, and finance and infrastructure was working on those 2 buckets. So do we have 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, or do we have 3?
Well, I think there was so when we were in Austin, everybody wanted to be, there was signups for these committees. I just got the name, so I don't, I'm just the facilitator. So you guys tell me, what is it supposed to be? So
That's
it
a
works out
question.
under governance, because it's Kim, Tara, and Cass, so that works. But then when you get to leadership and evaluation, you've got
Officers.
you've got officers. So are the officers just supposed to be on that? But then we have legislative.
Was
So
that one,
I don't know.
added?
recently?
This was the-
officer planning discussions? I feel, it wasn't? Okay.
And this is the same exact form that we
Okay.
had last year, I just changed the colors to
Okay.
red.
And then on leadership and evaluation, everybody's on that except me. All board members.
I agree. It probably needs to be all.
So
all
that's
three
why I
different.
put the names, because that's what was given to me, so that's a discussion, like, who's on what committee? Under finance and infrastructure, you have audit and facilities, and is facilities any different? Is that bond oversight? Or is that, I don't know, because this was made, so Cass, maybe you can help us.
Well,
Like,
I see this as, and that's a legitimate question, this is a question for our work study, because we do have that question, are there 3 or are there 7?
So can I give some frame of reference from the history?
Absolutely, you helped
Okay.
create this.
So, when working with Dr. Eldridge and Brian, one of the things that came up is there are times, and I'm gonna take the finance and infrastructure bucket as an example, where it's not audit, it's finance.
Right.
Because the administration might need additional support, or the board might want some people to dig into something. So let's take, for example, if we say finance instead of audit, if you put 3 people on the finance and infrastructure committee, 1 being an officer, 2 being board members, and that committee then works with the board, and the board says, you know what, our presentations that we get on the budget, we maybe want to see something a little different there, but all 7 of us don't need to make that decision. We would really trust 3 board members to really dig into that at a deeper level. So, Finance and Infrastructure Committee, since you are working over finance, can you help us with that? Can you help us work on a template for a presentation for finance? And so those 3 board members then work on that and bring it back to the full board as, hey guys, here's how we can move forward with this. Or, let's say facilities. You would need to think about, is the person on this Finance and Infrastructure Committee also on one of the ones that are on the facility, bond oversight, because they would have that piece of it, but it's bigger than that. So what if the district says, you know guys, we've got X, Y, and Z going on in facilities, we'd really like board member input on this. We now have a subcommittee that can go in with administration, work on that, and then report out to the board. So the idea is that each of these committees work in tandem with the district without everything having to come to all 7 of us. So ideally, I think that your finance and infrastructure, facilities, the person that's also on the ex officio, maybe we want them to also be on that committee, because then they have that bond perspective and they have the other perspective. And then you look on the governance side, it's one subcommittee that's working on the policy and the BOP. And policy can come 2 ways. It may be board driven, hey, we want to look at a new policy, hey, we want to look at an adjustment to a policy, or it could be administration driven, where they say, hey guys, we've got something that's come up, we need your support. And so we have this group of 3 people that can get together at a quick moment to be able to work on something so the work continues.
And that is a really big deal, because as we look moving forward, you know, if you have to get a group or study on an idea, and it comes up at a board meeting, and then it's another full month, like we're just talking about on this, potentially to make a decision, and potentially 2 months, depending upon how quickly everybody can cycle through. And so if we can have a smaller group to work on and to facilitate, and we all trust one another, so we're comfortable with this group of, you know, Marjorie and Tara and Cassandra looking at that and then bringing us an idea and moving things forward. I believe that facilitates us better.
so
And I
really, I think too, Cass, I think we need to draw lines, to me, if it's gonna be 3, then this is its own, this is its own, and this is its own. But it doesn't work out in leadership, because leadership
Correct.
has legislative.
Correct. So
And
the original
so-
design was that the center one was officers. And the officers were gonna lead the officer planning discussion, superintendent evaluation, and legislative planning, because when the 3 officers come together on that, they can also keep each other in the loop on governance and finance and infrastructure, because the president doesn't serve on the 2 side ones. The president serves on the middle one. The officers are allowed to keep the president informed, because one officer serves over here and one officer serves over here. and then the board members serve on those too. Why I think maybe what we need to look at it is, it sounds like there's interest in legislative that's outside of officers. So maybe it's that we need to think about do we want legislative to be officers, or do we need another separate bucket that's like, we're really interested in legislative, so we're a different committee, versus keeping it in this thing.
I say take officer planning discussions and pull it out completely. It's just a separate, it's not a subcommittee, it's not anything. It's just pull it out
Okay.
because
Something we do.
and then because
As a standard.
those discussions will also help categorize the work or questions or comments or concerns and where they go.
Well, then
Okay.
to that point, you can have an officer on each of the three, and you guys are still able to collaborate outside that.
That's my
Okay,
thought.
so if we take that off, now you just have leadership and evaluation, and you have evaluation tool, I mean, and then you have legislative planning under that?
I think they're still side by side under, wait, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah.
I think you
Well,
said
so
what I
if
was
you
gonna
take
say.
off the officers, you have evaluation tool and legislative planning, are you gonna change the tool again?
Well, but I also think it should be like legislative and evaluation and not leadership and evaluation. Because that's what you're doing in those two categories.
Oh, okay, so just,
Oh.
Do
Just
legislative
rename
and
just rename it to
evaluation.
legislative, okay,
Yeah, that's my suggestion.
and then,
This is not leadership.
I think you take, okay.
And to your question, you said, are we gonna rewrite the tool? I think that's a board decision, rewriting the tool versus adjusting goals based on progress. Those are two different
Yeah.
conversations.
But I
So,
also think it's a review anyway. It's always a
so
review.
it should just probably be evaluation and take off tool, and that's a decision the committee makes? Okay. So it's,
Oh, you're saying inside the ball, gotcha. I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with it now.
okay.
Other comments, thoughts?
So then you have, okay, so on your officers, you've got, so the officers are Tara, Kim, and Randy. So go back to your proposal, Cass, you said officers on both sides, right?
So I think that you guys need to pick who you want to serve on each one, and you need to remember the big overarching goal is to also build capacity in board members.
Right.
And that is the reason why the bond oversight had 2 people this year. That was very intentional. It wasn't like we always have to have 2, we need to. It was 2 board members are serving on bond oversight because Tara has a lot of history, and we need to bring another board member onto that historical knowledge. So then when you look at governance versus you look at finance and infrastructure, you have to think about that of we're building capacity and history and knowledge. And so who's gonna go there and then also continue to build that capacity, history, and knowledge. And the same thing on the policy side. Who has the historical knowledge on how to do that? And then how are we gonna also build capacity simultaneously?
And I would agree that that's probably true for all 3 categories. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the intent
for sure.
of all organizations, to build capacity.
Randy, could I also serve on the legislative committee?
Yes, ma'am. But,
Or
so.
do you just want to keep it at, well,
So, listening to our discussion, I think what I'm hearing, we're all in agreement that we will target those 3, governance, legislative, finance, that we believe it would be useful to take this information and over the next few days, and it's gonna need to turn around quick, what are your recommendations for the specifics of each group's goals and work and what's their job? And we'll gather that information, synthesize it, and get it back to you. But I also like that I hear us saying what Cass has said about the 3 and working there with stuff. So am I hearing that correctly?
Is everybody okay with the names? Because I can update this and we can send this electronically. And then,
I think the names, yes, but I think the structure of our board members is not It's
Right.
just the governance and the finance part, I mean, seems like it's overlapping, and how is that, like they said, building capacity for all of us?
Right.
When Marjorie's on one, period,
Uh-huh.
but not on the other. Caroline's on this one, but, like, how do we build capacity for all of us to make it equitable also amongst us, to not one person do the work, right? So, just a thought. And then
No, I think you're
also,
right. I think you're right. It has to be more
yeah, it's just,
equitable.
like Cassandra was like, I'm sure that's gonna wear them out too. So, just a thought. And also,
When,
Mr. Shackman, just to be clear, like, do we have any of these meetings on the calendar yet? Like, to actually
several
just,
of them
several
are
of
on-
them to
are-
get the work started and
Right.
start moving?
right,
We don't have it, we do have it?
no, some of them are, there's a
The-
few that
just
need to get
these.
set.
So, the district liaison stuff.
Okay.
But that's why we need to know the names so that there can be meeting dates set. Back to Tara's point, you got the BOP you gotta update, and then some policies. And there's been a couple that the administrators have asked me to update on policies, as well as a few that some of you have asked, so, I just
As we're-
tell me
as-
the people and we can get it set.
As you are thinking about the specific functions and roles of each group, can you also think about submitting to me which groups would be of your interest to serve on? Rather than me just sit here and say, you did this, you do this, you do this, I'd kind of like to have a sense of what do you think? And if you list 2 or 3, I may give you a call and say, or text you and, say, what would be your first choice or whatever. But give us an opportunity to try to maximize our strength. I think this would be an area that I could work effectively on.
I'm happy to work on, I'm so sorry, go ahead.
So is the goal to have the same people serving on the two sides of the same?
Yeah, so I
It's
think,
really three
yes, so
lists.
I think you have to
Yeah.
look at it as governances.
Uh-huh.
So I think originally, so just put lines and I'll draw lines. So I
Yeah,
think that
I-
governance is one, legislative and leadership, and then finance and infrastructure. So the president serves on this one, right? So there should be an officer, and then 2 members. So I think that's where you start. I think
Yeah,
we
I
need
think
to,
so too.
to
We do
me,
this.
if you all want to get started on the meeting dates and what the roles and responsibilities, I think you need to have a good understanding before we leave here tonight, so I can update this.
Right.
So, officer, and then 2 members. So, Kim and Tara are both officers, and so our officers are Tara, Randy, and Kim.
So we have Tara already on finance and infrastructure and on governance, and then we have Kim on governance, and Randy in
Randy's in the middle.
legislative.
So you got,
And
I
then,
think you need to throw the app card up and start over,
I think so too.
honestly. Like,
Yeah, I think just throw it out. and
if you
start
think
over.
about the big picture goal, throw away the names on the list right now.
okay,
And
that's
what
great.
makes the most sense to build capacity and for people to have a strong sense of they can do the work.
Okay. So I think we need to,
Scratch.
Okay?
but then are you gonna decide tonight, or? are you-
Sounds like Randy wants us to submit names privately.
I just want us to get it, but to Tara's point, we need to get moving with this. So I'm not opposed to us doing it tonight. Do you all think that we're in a position to do it tonight? Or would you like to be able to think about it for a couple of days and submit names?
I think we can do it today.
yeah,
Okay? I'm agreeable to that.
So Tara, I went ahead and took your name off of the governance and left you on finance.
Well, that's the one that I would
you
prefer
prefer
to
the
serve,
other way?
because I have the history and the knowledge on
Policy.
on what we've done and the history and our list.
Right.
You also have the knowledge and history on the finance, so.
But
Which
you
one would
have
you
the new
prefer?
knowledge on the bond. You're
I
the
have
one
one,
that's
I
capacity
have
building.
one 35-minute meeting in, so I mean, like, I know if I have the new knowledge, but I'm getting there.
It's
I have one
coming, girl, it's
35-minute
coming.
meeting.
You're carrying the torch.
Well, but
We
I
will
also
list
think
it.
separate the bond piece of it out. I mean, because that's a district committee. you know, the district committee, and I think we've covered that in what we're doing as far as that, and spreading the wealth, so
Yeah.
to speak,
There are-
with that.
There are property and facility issues that arise, maybe not frequently, but that arise, that are outside the scope of bond, and they will need to be dealt with when they come up.
So I'm fine either way, I
Outside of
just
the
don't think
bond.
it is, I think in order to build capacity, you probably can't be on both, so whichever one you want. I'll take
But
that.
I'll say, I have no problem serving on both, but it doesn't sound like that's the desired piece, you know, for that. But, and that said, the subcommittee on finance can present something and do something, and I can just as easily argue against it, so, you know? I mean, there's that, and I mean, I've already got lists started for the finance piece and the operating procedures, and, but this is what happens, I think, I just was, this is kind of what happens when you just have a longer term serving board member with
Agreed.
of the years.
Yeah.
And so it's not by, you know, hoarding all the work and information that I have the history.
Right.
It's
We
just
understand.
fallen out.
I have a question. I think originally it was officers in the middle, but that was because the officer planning was in there, and that's gone. So is it really just officer, 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 whoever wants to serve as the second and third pieces now, because the officer piece isn't in the middle anymore?
Well, I guess Tara's in officer planning discussion, but she's not in the middle part of that second one. So when we took off that offer discussion, I just took all off.
Right, so what I'm saying is the middle is no longer constrained to only officers. Because the original design was only officers in the middle bucket. So now you basically have an officer on each, and then anybody can serve as the second and third person. It could be an officer, it could be a board member.
But again, if our focus is building capacity, that can't be the case.
I don't
We
want to
have
do
got-
the middle section.
We have got to.
Well, I know
we've
that.
gotta get
Okay.
other people
I
on
know
that.
that. No, I agree, I'm just saying,
leave
if the
Randy on
concern
there?
is that Tara has the history on two, she could serve on both as the history person, because she's willing to, and having 6 spots, somebody's gonna have to serve on two. It's not humanly possible, mathematically.
Well, and there's nothing that would say a committee that's meeting, if they feel like a Tara who has institutional knowledge would be useful to their discussion, that she certainly could be invited to a meeting. When, you know,
Wouldn't that have quorum?
included for us, you know,
Wouldn't
part
that have
of the
quorum?
discussion.
Well, there should be a sub.
If they attended, it would be,
I'm just trying to make sure everybody's got learning knowledge. And I love Tara, and I want her to be in all the things, but she can't be in all the committees doing all the things, so.
Shouldn't want to.
I shouldn't want to, but she has the knowledge,
don't want the
so
middle
technically
part.
she could be.
I don't want the middle part.
So,
so,
Do I need to say
I'm
that
not fighting
again?
against you,
I
Tara.
don't
I'm
want-
just trying to
I-
get people with some
I don't want the middle
mastery.
part.
Like we've got to share the knowledge.
okay, can I make another suggestion on finance? I think it probably should be finance and operations, and maybe facilities and programming, because I think that's something that we're gonna be really looking at through this study. And it's just a suggestion, because I think infrastructure, it sounded good at the time. And we'll have to go back, I mean, you know, this was work over the year, but I think, you know, I think sometimes, you know,
Could just call it operations. And then have one word statements.
okay,
Which would make it easier.
you know,
You
but then
can pick
you're,
apart the words all you want.
so what are we calling it?
Operations is fine. We
Okay.
could also simplify that middle by just calling it leadership as opposed to an
Okay.
evaluation.
You guys are just really
We took off
messing
leadership.
up the whole form, but that
Right.
was now leadership, okay. And operations, so do you want to call it maybe facilities and programming? Because that, I think that's going to be a big discussion,
Yep, let's do it.
but that would add 2 words,
Okay,
guys.
so
Okay, but, or that's just maybe a definition under facilities, because that's going to come up. Tara, your name's on the first one on that committee, what do you think? Or are you off that committee? I don't know.
Tara, you've been on whatever
I
committees
wasn't
you want.
listening to you, so.
Well, I just said so if we call it operations and it's audit and facilities, should it be facilities and programs? Because facilities and programs are gonna be, or it could just be facilities, I guess, and programs could be a sub in that conversation, but that's part of the Woodward study.
I think the name is,
Facilities is fine.
I just think the name isn't, I don't have strong thoughts either way.
Okay, well, we'll just
Well,
leave
and I
it.
don't want us to get hung up on, you
Well-
know, exactly trying to decide what word it could ultimately be
Okay.
changed if we would need to, but the big deal will be you thinking through various subcommittee tasks, functions, so that we can
Okay.
end up having the information together and get it to all of us so we can reach a consensus on it.
So can I ask, if last year I served on governance, would it be beneficial to stay or move to operations?
That's a good question. I think if capacity building is one of our issues, to say that you serve a maximum of a
that,
year
check.
and then move would be valuable to us,
Sign me up for operations then.
okay?
And then Kim will be on that. Kim's the board member, the officer.
But Tara's on here as an officer.
We're scratching, take
Oh,
the names
all right,
off.
Tara, you're
It's
off.
all new names,
Okay.
start fresh.
All right.
Okay, well, let's start at the beginning then.
Thanks.
Time out. Okay, so we're in governance, so who's gonna be on that? That's 3 people. But we're not
And
doing
that
officers, right?
Was Tara's choice.
Tara.
to
That's
lead
my
this.
first choice.
Right, so
Okay,
let's,
so Tara's on,
Okay.
And I was already on that, so. I won't be.
so you're not on there. Okay,
Cassandra, you wanna stay on that?
Sure, I'll stay on.
Kim, you're the officer. Oh, Tara's
Wait,
the officer.
Tara.
Sorry,
So
sorry.
So which
sorry.
board member?
The board member's Tara.
What about
No,
Marjorie?
Tara's the
That's
officer.
what I'm
Marjorie, do
saying.
you wanna
I
be
think
on that?
Marjorie should be on
You wanna
that.
build
Okay.
some
That's a good way to
capacity?
learn.
Most interested in.
I don't care, I'm the
All right.
newest one
Marjorie.
here, so
All right,
I have
Marjorie.
lots to learn. It
You're
really doesn't
bottom on
matter
the
what
totem,
box I
honey.
take it from.
so
Jump
can
in.
you guys list those names again so I get them right?
Tara, Cass, Marjorie.
Okay,
Our governance, and we're maintaining policy and BOP as subcategories.
Right.
okay. Okay. In this one, we're calling leadership, the center
That
bucket.
was legislative and evaluation. No?
I
just
thought you
leadership.
changed
I
it
thought
to
we changed it
leadership.
to leadership.
I thought we changed it to
Officer
legislative.
planning is gone.
We did, and then
It went back to
changed
leadership.
it to
Yeah.
leadership.
So leadership,
Actually.
officer planning is gone, superintendent evaluation, the word tool is gone, and legislative planning.
Okay, we're scratching this.
That's what
Okay,
I've got.
who's on
So now
this?
we're back to leadership.
I'd like to plan to
I'm
serve
on
there.
that.
I have not.
So
Okay,
Carolyn, Randy,
That
Ileana,
was
are you
Randy.
staying on this? Kim?
Wait,
The
You're
list is
over here.
gone, there's nobody staying.
Oh,
We're all rewriting.
we're all, okay.
Pretend the list didn't exist.
Randy, Carolyn, Ileana?
the only reason I would stay was because I've already invested work that's still
She's on
going, so I'm
TASB.
staying. Sorry, y'all.
Well, and I think my thought process in originally putting your name there is you are serving as our TASB coordinator and, you know, those pieces, so.
so Ileana.
Got it.
Okay,
Alright.
so Randy, Carolyn, and Ileana, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And operations, Kim?
Kim, Ileana, and
Do you want me to jump in on the second one?
Should
Or
I
somebody-
do it since I know nothing?
That's probably a good answer for it.
It's up to you, if you wanna take it, go for it.
Wait, who's missing? Do we have any?
Tara. No,
No,
Tara's on
Tara's over
this.
there.
Oh, Tara's on the left.
Okay,
Marjorie,
so who is so Kim, you're the
so
board
me,
member on that?
me,
Or
officer.
the officer, sorry.
me, Ileana, and you.
Sure.
Great. Do it.
Beautiful.
I'm just gonna wait for y'all's new sheet.
Okay,
And it's operations, finance, facilities, and programming.
Here's a sticky.
What's the new one for governance?
Leader, no, nothing.
Governance,
You
just
and
governance.
stay.
Randy, you and me.
Sure, I got this.
And
okay.
these are completely separate from these.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so really, I just need your folders. You can keep this page if you want, and then I'll send you all this electronically, because it'll change,
Okay.
okay?
So now that we know the people, can the people not just meet to set the goals? versus, Randy, you wanna collect all the information, you wanna,
I just want to make sure it all happens.
She's gonna
Okay.
change it all, because all of it has to do with,
So we're talking,
I know, but I need my
So
work.
I just need to change, well, I have to change all the documents and then I'll send them and you guys can decide how long you wanna meet, what your goal is and, cause they're not correct with all the people changes.
okay, so you
And
want
the name changes, yes, unless you wanna keep this. Some of you, I knew Cass wanted to keep that, that's why I said, if you wanna keep this sheet,
Okay.
but otherwise give me everything back and I will send it to you electronically. Or if you want it, I will run it off correctly.
Okay, so just to be clear,
I like.
we're not starting any conversations on meetings, right? So this is literally just,
Well, the forms aren't correct unless you wanna do, I mean, it's up to you all. I'm just gonna correct the forms.
I'm
is
keeping on
there
my
not
feet.
like a standard, out of curiosity, and I'm sorry, maybe I don't understand, but is there not a standard, just something that we just start setting meetings? Like meet every other week, meet once a month?
That's,
I'm
That's
just-
what we need to have on paper, that's what we're
Okay.
trying to do.
Is it, can we,
But I think it's hard to plan that if you haven't decided what you're working on. Because
What's the
if
goal?
I'm,
But we
if I'm
have-
working
we
on
just did.
planning my wife's and my, anniversary.
can we not have
maybe,
that discussion as a group? Like,
Yeah, that's
like
what I think.
governance, what do we want those people to do?
Right.
Because we know, some of us know and we have ideas.
okay,
I agree,
write
think
it
that
on.
was
Let's
all-
talk through it.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, just write down the purpose.
and I will take the notes, cause I made these sheets so we would know. So it doesn't matter, you can cross them out. I mean, it still has policies,
It's okay.
but it's
okay.
governance. We'll change it to
I think we just
governance.
gotta-
Okay, so this is the governance committee, and that is Kim,
Cass and Marjorie. No.
Oh.
up here.
Tara, Cassie.
Tara, Cass, and Marjorie.
okay, so Tara, Cass, and Marjorie, and then I just put on here, do you guys want to elect a chair? I think it probably should be Tara, since she's got the history. I'll elect her. I don't know. I'm just trying to fill in my boxes. Okay, what is the purpose of this governance committee? Is this, you oversee policy and board operating procedures, correct? Okay,
Yes, and so on policy, what is most important to the board? So one, we know that administration will bring us policies that need adjustments. Board members would also say, hey, can we look at this policy? I don't know, I have a question. Are there regular cadences that boards go through policies and we say, we need to look at everything that hadn't been revised since 1998?
Which we did that.
so you get,
no.
so here's how policy works. You get
Operating
updates,
Operating procedures.
you get updates from TASB, and those need to be reviewed, because those get voted on, right? And then there's policies, I mean, I've been reviewing our policies, and we have policies that are still in effect from 2000 and 2002, and I think those need to be reviewed. And so you can say, I mean, I think that some of those need to be that's 22 years old.
So would it be receive policy reviews from admin and other board members, create a schedule for,
I would say from those two and also other, because a staff member may suggest something that we need to put stairs outside the, whatever.
so we could
but-
say receive policy reviews from stakeholders.
Right.
Okay?
And
And
then
then-
revise current CFP policy when needed,
Uh-huh.
revise or add.
And then that subcommittee can also work, like, we can set our own, because like, if we do a review and we're like, there are 732 policies, they're 25 years old, we're not gonna do them all this year.
Right.
So like, we need to set a schedule for the cadence of what we can update.
Yes, and that will be something, but also, you can also, we can also request a review from our TASB field agent that will also do that for us. So it's not like you're going through every document. That is a service that we already pay for.
Great.
And I think that needs to happen because, and then, there's policies and then there's the regulations of how we implement those policies. And that's something we as administration do. So, you guys will there's been a couple that I know that have asked, just, I don't know, different schools that have talked to Kim about revising our recess. Is it clean and clear? And the other one was open lunch for seniors, and that hasn't been updated since 2002. And just more clear guidelines. So, and just a review. So those are the ones that I've looked at
So
recently.
then those same statements would apply to the BOP. Receive BOP reviews from stakeholders, revise BOP as defined by the BOP, which was every 2 years, unless we need to do it more frequently, which we do.
In the policy, I would just say this needed, because that could.
Well, because the
sooner than
the
later.
subcommittees are not in the
Not-
board operating, so.
We reviewed the POP too.
Okay, so that kind of goes over rules and, okay. And then meeting frequency, do you all like have a day or time or?
I'd rather there just be meetings scheduled and then, this is what I put in my draft notes, like 2 weeks before the meeting, do we have anything? And we cancel it or we don't,
2 weeks before a board meeting?
The chairperson
No, the
checks in.
scheduled subcommittee meeting.
So once a month, 2 weeks before the board meeting?
I don't know the frequency needed,
Oh,
maybe
okay.
as we start out, it's monthly, maybe it's every other
Okay.
month, but set those appointments. Get them on the calendar.
Right.
2 weeks prior to those meetings, with some consideration of board meeting, how that would all work. And then 2 weeks before the subcommittee meeting calendar, do we need to meet? If we don't need to meet, let's cancel the meeting.
Okay,
I mean, I just think that's for all the
so the
committees.
meeting frequency
I
is
agree.
monthly, cancel if needed.
2 weeks before.
She's saying 2 weeks before the meeting.
We
determine if
evaluate
need
whether
to
we
meet.
need to meet.
Right. But,
Okay.
she's right.
So when you say monthly, is that like the first Wednesday of the month? Or, I mean, I think you have to or is it just called as needed? Because.
I think we have to get together with our calendar.
Okay. So you
And
guys.
then we can
So the chairperson would
revise
set the meeting, the chairperson would be the person who's setting the meeting every month. I just think that seems excessive.
She means like a standard,
Just a
my
standard.
opinion.
Like, I'm not looking at my
The
calendar
15th.
right now and telling you I'm available the second Wednesday of every month.
I get it.
The three of
That's
us
why I'm
need
saying
to
monthly,
sit down and figure it out, and we're
Every
gonna
2
meet
months,
monthly.
every 8 weeks.
said it
2
monthly.
times a semester.
We said monthly,
So you're gonna meet every month.
unless we need to cancel, and the chair will reach out to confirm.
So then that's not meeting every month. That is reviewing every month. The meeting every month would say to, because you have to think of it as like, if we all drop dead tomorrow, the next people would have to take over. So they have to be able to read that through. So is it a minimum of 2 a semester, a minimum of 2 in the fall, 3 in the fall? Like a minimum, you set a minimum and you can always do more. But it's like, what is the standard being held to everybody that's gonna pick up this manual and say, let's go?
Wouldn't it be 5 times a semester? 10 times? How many board meetings do we have? Right?
That seems like a lot, that you're holding a minimum standard to.
as needed?
I'm not saying it's not, it's makes you guys can meet every week for all I care. I just, for the
I'm
next,
not.
to put it, we're gonna start putting things in writing, you need to start thinking about the bigger picture. It's not just about what this current subcommittee is gonna do.
We said monthly,
It's-
and if we don't have anything to
that's what
meet
I'm
about, then
asking.
we're not gonna come and have coffee together.
Okay,
If there is nothing on the agenda, then we would talk to the president and say, we don't feel like we need to meet this month. We know we said we met monthly, but we have nothing on our
so you're
agenda.
reviewing every month. It's
We-
not, that's not meeting every month, Cassandra, that's 2 different things.
Okay, then we will come and have coffee, even if we have nothing on our agenda.
Well,
That's really not the point.
my suggestion is pick the first date and then discuss it among yourselves and decide on your next date. And we recommend that you meet at least twice during a semester.
So Tara, Cass, and Marjorie, you all will determine when you meet. And right now, I just have monthly. And then you guys will determine a date. If you don't meet, you don't meet. Okay, terms of service. Is this a 1-year or 2-year term? Or do we review these every year? Because this will be going into the board operating as well. It has to be defined.
So we did 1.
I think it would be beneficial to do 2.
I agree.
Because you kind of don't get a bigger, that's us serving 1 year, right? You don't really get a bigger picture of it until you've been doing it for a little bit more time. So
I agree.
continuous time, 2 years. That's my opinion, but I'm not on the BOP, so.
I agree. I think ideally there would be some roll off, roll on though.
The only challenge with that, if you do a 2-year, is if you run into an election environment year and someone retires from service or doesn't get reelected, it waffles up your schedule a little bit.
Can it be 1 year with one board member serving 2 consecutive years? Meaning the turnover happens for 2 people, but
It's just
one
a-
person stays so that that person can then essentially becomes the chair or help make sure
Right.
if 2 brand new board members come onto it, there is continuity across 2 years.
Awesome.
Sounds good. So how would I word that in my box?
She'll send you the language.
Okay, send me the language. Okay. All right.
Well, I think that I would suggest in the general rules for all of the committees, that we would.
Same thing.
Yeah, we would suggest that no more than 1 new board member per term on a committee, because I'd hate to see a committee be, it's Randy, and then it's John Doe and, Mary Smith, because they were both elected, and now I've got, complete.
I think that just the one stays, and I think you guys have, I just need to get the language. Okay. So moving on to page 4 in this document here that says superintendent's evaluation, we changed that to leadership, and that is Randy, Carolyn, and Ileana. And so, meeting frequency, are we gonna stay with the monthly? And who's gonna be the chair of this committee?
I'll chair it, and
Okay. Okay,
monthly will be a good start.
okay.
And
And you
again,
guys
then
will set
we'll
those dates?
schedule dates, so we can look at all of it.
And then what did we say the purpose of this committee was?
Well, it's pretty well defined, I think, by the
Legislative
titles.
planning.
Legislative planning and evaluation, okay, got it. Okay, and same thing, we're gonna do 2 years and then whatever Cass's language is, okay. All right, and then the next one, skip this, when we go to audit, it'll be operations, so on operations is Ileana, Kim, and Marjorie. Who wants to chair this committee?
Tara. Oh, wait, just kidding.
Tara's not on.
Kim.
Kim.
Sorry, Tara.
Okay, and what is the purpose of this committee? Audit, facilities and programming? Okay, and then,
Is it audit? Because we already have the audit committee on the calendar. So is it audit or is it finance support? Is
we
that
called it
mean
operations, so it's not audit, it's
Finance.
finance, okay. Okay,
So you said Kim, Tara, and Ileana?
No.
No. Me, Kim, and Marjorie.
okay, and then you guys are gonna, same thing, the monthly forecast? All right.
Got it.
And 2, okay.
Keep it all the same.
Okay, all right, that's done, so I will update that. Okay? And then, do you all like this form that the last one, document 4, I will change the wording, and then who attended the meeting, and when the date was, and the topics you discussed that you presented at the board meeting? Does this look okay?
Yep.
Okay, okay.
The function of this form is both to keep a historical purpose for us, but also to let whoever is planning script and stuff for the meeting to establish agenda. So get that and say, okay, we got a board report coming from XYZ.
Okay,
Okay?
this is that.
All right.
I got all the changes, I just need Cass's verbiage.
Is there a reason why we're having you do all of the documentation? I think you probably have a lot of other things to do
You
besides
know what, I
board
just tried to,
documentation.
honestly, I was just trying to organize it based on what we started last year and just get it documented. I think we already have the template now, and then, to me, I'm just like, it's systematic, and now you guys know, and I'm thinking about our board portal that you're gonna love, because it's gonna have all the stuff on there, and I think it's just the general start of it.
Okay.
So, okay,
Do you want these folders after all?
sure. Just, I'll collect them at the end. Or just hang, I'll collect your paperwork at the end.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next item on our agenda is the CB 2030. And looking at that document and structure for governance in the district was designed in 2019. There was a 63 design team members. There were 63 design team members and a consultant that began that work and worked all the way through. In addition, the Board of Trustees participated in a visioning workshop in which a motto, a vision, and a mission statement and value statements for the district was created. The current Board of Trustees did ask Dr. Eldridge to review the 2030 document, and while we do want to thank the original design team members who were on that committee as a collaborative effort with the district and other communities and leaders, and now we want to move forward and take a look at reviewing that. So Dr. Eldridge, would you like to take over and give us an
Okay,
update?
and so in your folder, I gave you the original document, okay, just for your reference. And I tried to figure out how am I gonna do this? And so I came up with a scorecard. And in that, so you can, I also made sure there are all the categories. But if you skip to page 3, I want you to notice the status key in the top right-hand corner. And the status key is after Brian, myself, and our leadership team met, I came up with a status key that red means it's not started or no longer relevant. Yellow is in progress, and green is implemented or complete. And so just try to go through here and say what have we done and what have we not done. So just this is just an overview of based on people that had been here, based on new people. So like the book study of Think Critically, I have not read. But when this was written, the people that, that was assigned to, they read it, okay? But the struggle for me in some of this is we have action steps and we have strategies. And sometimes I think the strategies, which are the ones that are coded green, red, or yellow, I think those needed to be defined with what resource are we going to use. Because if you look back to the original document, it was assigned to somebody. But let's look at the original document. And I just want you to see the format. So look on page 11. Okay, so you can do a side by side. So if you look on page 11, it says that the owner, which was the associate superintendent, we don't have that title anymore. You'll see action steps, owner, measure, resources, and timeline. And based on our measure, after reading a book and PLCs, was that 65% of our students would meet master's level on reading. And what I struggled with is some of, I guess, our measures that, did everybody read the book study? Did, what was the training on PLCs? Did we discuss the reading strategies for teachers? And so, but based on what was written, that's how the status key was determined. And does everybody understand that? So I think you can get, to me, I think that there's probably a column missing that says evidence. I always think that if we are asking, if this is our action, we measured it, but what was the evidence? I mean, to me, a resource of thinking critically is matching a star. Sometimes wording can be confusing if you weren't the owner of the document, and that's just my mindset. But they were all written a little different, because if this was, some of the goals in the timeline were written in 10-year increments, and some of them said annually, and some of them said ongoing. And so I just went through based on the evidence of the people we have here, of what was done and what was not. And then I thought, okay, this is kind of confusing because it's a lot of information. So, it's really just an overview. So it's just a couple things that I want to point out to you, just overviews in my mind, just wording, timelines, what are we, what are we actually really doing? So I want you to look on, let me see, what page is that? I wrote on one of these. Hang on, just give me a minute. Okay, so if you look on page 4, it says, the first action step on this one says, provide partial scholarships to promote further education and administration. One, I think that the biggest, that number 2 is also leadership development. I think that, we could easily combine those where we didn't provide scholarships for our people in administration. I think we can provide leadership development and sending them to things. And so that's just one example of looking at different things. Number 2, on leadership development, I think there was a time that CFB sent people to Deloitte, and maybe that's why it's, was 2025, because that would have been 6 years, and we would have a constant group of people going. But we haven't sent anybody since I've been here to that. Professional learning communities training is vital, but that's also, where do we start for that? I mean, that's typically, I think it's been started, but I don't think it's been continued. So again, some things have been implemented, but I don't know that they've been completed. I will tell you, one of the things under administrative leadership development is we have started a team CFB, and then we've started leadership meetings so that they can understand what instructional leadership is, what being a part of a good culture is, and that's kind of already been implemented. And so as I go through here, just knowing what we have here with different people, I try to put the different colors on, giving it a score. And then I thought, okay, well, this might be confusing. So here's the other thing I did. I took all the greens and put them on one paper. I took all, well, I'm just trying to think, how do you read a document that you didn't create? It's very hard for me. And so the greens, again, you can see that a lot of things have been started, but we, to me, I think we need to define the evidence of what was implemented. And I think it goes back to what Tara said, and I've used this, your goal confused, or goal, wasn't that the wording? And so I think that some of these overlap our improvement plans, and I think we need to just, Kim Holcomb and I have been working together on the academic side, and I think my proposal, after looking at all these and categorizing them, I think what we can do is take what do we feel like we want to move forward with as a district, knowing that some people did all this work, but really defining the strategies that we're going to use. And I'll give you another example. So if you look at the yellow page, okay, if you look at generate revenue, which is 3 down on page 1, on this page right here, it's all yellow. And it says generate revenue through CTE opportunities. I think that should say generate opportunities through CTE, because our kids, our kids that may sell floral arrangements or, cook a meal, they're generating, that's an opportunity for them, but that money that they're generating is going back into supplies. I don't know that that is a revenue-based, because somebody has to buy the supplies, so we're giving them an opportunity. And when we tell them that we're gonna charge people, it makes them think differently. So if they know that they're gonna sell arrangements to you all, that is a different level of performance. So we're giving an opportunity through CTE that they're not generating revenue, they're generating the experience and the opportunity of producing a product that could be sold. But that is not necessarily revenue that's gonna come back and go, we made $1 million on flowers. And so, because supplies have to be bought. And so that was, so some of it may be just wording that can be tailored, because I do think that's important. And again, what does yellow stand for? It's, you know, it's being thought through. And so if you go to page 2 in the yellow and you look down at the very bottom of the page where it says investigate the feasibility and effectiveness of early childhood, I think we're doing that. That's the Woopert study. But again, because it was marked on here, feasibility study, and I think, okay, well, someone thought that out, and that's what's coming to right now. Like, that's, somebody had the idea that, wow, tap into early childhood, and we're doing that. And so I think there's just some things that are wow, you know, it was thought out, and then it could be word choice for me. And then on the next page of the yellow, if you look down, the second one, it says implement a facility improvement process, consideration of spaces, flexibility, community use. And then it says 100% completion of a process. Well, again, I think Woopert has helped us with that, but also Chris has worked on a facility schedule of, if you want to use our buildings, what does that look like? And so we're developing a schedule that, you know, not everything's free. I think, you know, and we've developed great partnerships with our cities, and, you know, it's worked out great. If they want to use Nancy Watton, what do we pay for that? Because what isn't accounted for sometimes is the usage of a building, especially Nancy Watton. If we just let everybody use it for banquets, and a charter school was using it for graduation, we didn't have an account for it. What happens to the carpet when we need to replace it, or usage fees for that, security, custodial fees, all of that. So we've developed that. And so I think if we're going to define some of these things, we also need to attach the evidence of it, so that, you know, the work that was started is also the work that we can see completed. Like our annual, if you look halfway down the page, annual security audit, well, that's TEA, they do that. And so we have the evidence to show that we've done that. And then customer service, I'm real excited about this. Dee and Kim are starting their focus on customer service for secretaries. So that's next week. So all the secretaries are coming in for a training of, you know, how they train their office staff, and they're being trained by a professional, and they're so excited. And I know Kim and Dee took invitations to them, and they ordered shirts, because we start with the secretaries on customer service, and then they train their office, and we can start with the administrators. So, but when we say mandatory with focus, we have to also have a timeline. It can be mandatory, but to me, it's just, some of it is just word choice, like, what are we doing? I think our ongoing emotional support for our kids, what does that look like? So I think these have been great talking points for our team, and also looking at, wow, we're still engaged. If you look at the work, I divided it. Here's the green, here's the yellow. That means these things are either started or going to start, and there's only one page of reds of things that may have been discussed, but we haven't done it. We haven't created a 1st through 8th grade GT school. Maybe there was a task force in the curricular areas. I don't have evidence of that. I think Kim and I have been talking about online programming, especially for the classes that are very hard to get, and some of our language classes. And again, the partial scholarships, we haven't talked about that, and dual language options for Korean. But overall, if you look at the document that was designed, that is all that really, none of it took off. But look at the quality that is. And again, as you all ask me, I think we've got to combine some things and really define them in a way that also shows the evidence that we accomplished it. Because we can't just put a number and say, check, we did it. I would probably ask, as a board member or a community member, how do you know we did that? Because this is, to me, a lot of time. So with all of that, I'll give you guys time to look through it, and based on what I graded it, I also gave you a reflection sheet And it's just an open sheet of any thoughts or move forward actions that you would like to see, or anything that you would like to say. You know, somebody spent a lot of time on this, and I do think that there's things already happening. It may just need to be redefined, or do we implement it in something else? I don't know. I just wanted to give you the research and the time that we put into it, and what measures. So I think you all can take a few minutes and process.
Let me jump back in and focus this a bit to move forward. First of all, we ask you to put this together. You've spent a significant amount of time, energy, and effort. Thank you, and job well done. It's not to say that it is complete,
Right.
but it is well done and a great start. Also, I think what your report has opened my eyes to is that we've probably accomplished more out of this than I thought we had. Secondly, this project, Collaborative Vision 2030, could have never foreseen in 18 and 19 that we're about to get smacked by a pandemic and it would change everything. And they also couldn't predict very well that we would, that prior to, or as they were developing, that'd be the last time the state would give us an allocation bump for students, you know. And when we start talking about paying for online training and for additional stuff, some of that has been significantly changed because of budget constraints. And while it would still be nice to do some of that, it would be challenging for us in the current budget. So again, thanks for your good work. And my initial thought is we've got more of this done than I think we had. I guess the final step for me would be to say, are the remaining goals still on tap for us? And do we still need to be focused in that area and what hasn't been accomplished yet out of the 2030?
And I'd like to say it's only 2024. I think you're doing a great, we're doing a great job.
Mhm.
We're doing a great job. Gotten a lot done already. It's only 2024. It's 6 more years.
Or do we take off, I mean, you know, I think you can also call it a collaborative vision. I don't know, I just, you know, I review, but I would love you can write down your reflections or thoughts or moving forward, or did you think of this? You know, I always look at the why. Why, as a district and a community, we did this, because it's nice to see where we're going and what we're doing. And then now I think of, okay, we know the why, but what else? What else are we not thinking of? Or what else are we thinking of? Or what else is on your mind concerning a document? Because, you know, looking back at the names, you know, I think there's some quality, wonderful people, a part of our community that were on here. And I think, you know, just whether we get them an email, just to give them kudos, you know, Mary Level's on here, Catherine Carlin's on here, Les is on here, Robert Dye's on here. I mean, just some quality people in our community. You know, do you want me to email them with I think when I look back at the proposal on this, it was kind of like the bond oversight. You're supposed to come back every year and give a report on, I think it said every year, or we were gonna meet up every year. So I just need y'all's help.
So I think an update to the actual committee, I think is beneficial, and I think that the approach that you used with the red, yellow, green could easily be, you know, applied in here, so it's the document that they remember.
Right.
You know, and you know, if there's links to the things that show the demonstration. I mean, I think that would be worthwhile, and recognizing, their work as well as a progress document, posted on our website. I will say, it took me a minute to find the CV 2030 plan on our website
Yeah.
just now. I mean, I had to use the search function, and that's risky, but anyway. But here was the plan, and here's a progress update, where we are. I think for me, you're right, this was a great gathering of community members and other stakeholders within our district, but it also kind of provides the high-level overview of what was a priority to our community for the schools. And so does CV 2030 drive superintendent goals? Does it drive board goals? What does it drive to connect all of our goals, which district goals or board goals or superintendent goals, those should flow down to DIC, CIC. I mean, I need a flow chart. of our
Yes.
goals.
Connection.
I got you on that. I'm working on it.
I mean,
I mean, seriously, I've been working on that with Kim because it's this, and this, and I think we've got to make it clean and clear, and then because this analysis right here is amazing. This analysis that was done is almost a checklist for me because here's our opportunities. We know we have aging buildings, we're working on it. Bond funds, space to gain students. That's what we talked about, student services. What are we gonna do to increase our gifted and talented? Reevaluate our athletic needs. I mean, it's all on here. It's just, it's awesome, and the threats are already defined. Our charters, our competitors who brand themselves in a different manner, declining enrollment, cultural barriers, unfunded mandates, everything that is affecting us now is on here. This is amazing to me. I feel like I could almost make a checklist on this. I mean, this is probably one of my favorite pages. I think there's also some word choice that just for me, I'm, a little different, but this page, and it's page 4 in the original document, because it shows what our strengths are. Our teachers, those of you that have been at our hamburger lunches, our teachers and staff, I mean, you've seen the energy, and the family feel has been amazing, and that is one of our biggest strengths. And that professional growth, our staff wants to grow. Today at the golf, the teacher of the year says, Dr. Eldridge, I want you to know, I took your advice, I'm working on my master's, I finished my first class. That's what we gotta keep pouring into them so they stay, and it's already on here. It's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and to me, these are still true today, and, I found that to be it was refreshing to see, because these are all the things in my mind, have categorized.
okay, but let me
And I
ask.
would go back to the website, the reason, there's 2 different versions. And so that's kind of probably.
Admitting that is a problem.
So
Why
we've got
is
it, but it could be the cover page was different or the order. And
Okay.
so we will get it right and put the progress on there. I do agree that that's a great thing to do because we've done the work.
But I still, we as a board, I think, need to decide how are we going to use the community developed Vision 2030 to guide our work? Like, what is our focus going to be? Because that is going to, the conversation and what the priorities, it can't be, we define something for every single item in this booklet. It's too much, right? But we gotta identify the priorities and drive what is our work going to be to reach this. If CV 2030 is at the top of the flow chart, I still don't know if it is.
So I have a question, in looking at the original document, if you look at page 1 through 9, that's really like the backbone.
Right.
That's where the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, the buckets, which are the strategic priorities, the motto, mission, vision, value statements. Like, I feel like 1 through 9 is like the backbone of this that wouldn't need to change. It's gonna stay through 2030, and then at that point, maybe we would we wanna revisit mission, because that's probably a 10-year thing that you do. But then if you look at page 10, the objectives also are very strong statements. Like objective 1 is develop, implement, and sustain programs to maximize academic achievement for all students. Like, I think to the objective point, it probably still stands no matter what, or we would need to decide, do the objectives still stand? It's the measures and the action steps
Right,
that have either
strategies.
been accomplished already and have evidence, need to be struck through, or we need new ones. Because if you feel the weight of these papers, the weight 4 years in is so strong on the green.
Right.
We've got some that maybe we need to abandon. We've got some in progress, and we still have goals in House Bill 3 to meet our academic achievement goals.
Right.
So it's almost like, to me, it looks like keep the value statements, the strategic priorities, and the objectives on page 10. Would we keep those the same? And then do we bring in stakeholders and a consultant? I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know who does the work. I know it's not us defining all of these, but who would define how we move forward, and then how do we use that information?
Well, I think this page 10 has to be retyped, because my apologies that you guys can't read it, but this is a JPEG picture, and it cannot be changed. I've tried. And I even asked
But
Amy.
those things are on.
So, but I think
prior.
if you think about it, our job is learning, okay? And safety is in there, and our community is in there, and social emotional is also, I mean, those are 4 good buckets right there that to me also go with the district improvement plan. And I think there's a way that we can merge them so that we have a document and a flow chart that shows here, we're all consistent with everything. And
Isn't
to
it
me,
like
that's,
this would be the 5-year plan and the DIC's the 1-year plan?
you could do it that way, yeah. Do we need a committee?
That's what I was gonna offer, committee.
I mean,
I think it would be beneficial to, well, not our job to,
Like it was developed with a consultant, like somebody who is has expertise in developing strategic plans. So my question is, would you not bring an expert back in to develop a new 5-year plan with the backbone of this? To get us all on the same page?
Well, why
Well,
would
but
we
I thought,
just,
yeah, I thought you said not enough was gonna change.
Well, the
Why do we
objectives are the
need
same, but
somebody?
if you go to the action steps.
Well,
you know,
the
this very first
consultants
page,
are
almost
expensive.
all the
yeah, I don't think we need to hire somebody,
it-
but why don't we re-invite the people that started this 4 years ago? If they're still interested, have them come back over and look, reevaluate, give a progress report of what they think has been accomplished,
yeah.
and what needs to either change or modify or delete for the future.
Or maybe ask them about the red. Is that something we still wanna work on?
But they owned it, they created it.
Right, but like, is this something you wanna, like you just said, is it something you want us to continue working on? And what about the yellow? Or
But since the
trying?
stakeholders had so much input at the beginning, they should have input in this part of it too.
and I think too, I don't
If
know
they
how
want-
it was set
If
up.
they want it.
But in my mind, I think everybody was assigned a certain priority, right? I think it would be beneficial if we do that, then whatever committee they served on, I think there needs to be somebody of leadership capacity with them to define how we're doing it. Because I think the confusion is the consistency in the timelines or the resources were based on whoever chaired that specific committee. Was there guidance from our district? I don't know. I'm asking the question because I wasn't here.
No, and I think they would need some guidance, because if,
Then we could really get it defined, and we could also say, and when you come back, here's the evidence that we could use. For example, curriculum. If you put Kim Holcomb and you took here's literacy, here's CCMR, there's already things that we're doing that we could combine probably a few of the things that are already in here, and it would be, one, to relay the information, but two, to refine it so that it's clean and clear. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The original process involved the consultant working with each different committee area, and the group was divided into the committees, and we had some staff personnel working with the consultant and working with each committee. I am very much in favor of and like the suggestion, Tara and others, that we need to put together something that communicates to the committee, your work continues, and here's some of the good news that's come out of it, and here's a way to look at and see. We, and maybe we can do some things with local media or whatever that also says our community set us in this direction. Many years ago, here's what we've accomplished, and we're still working on. And I think that is a good process for us.
So we're gonna invite these people back to continue to do it, to review the progress and
Well,
review
we'll
the plan?
at least announce and share the information, and that, let them know that they can go to the website and see updated information. If we then think that it is important to get some stakeholders together, we can invite from the same group. I have no idea how many of them would still be interested if they're still available.
And
for
when
sure.
did the meetings take place? Does anybody know that? Were they in the evenings or?
They were in the evenings.
They were in the evenings.
But give these people the opportunity to come back if they would like to, I think, be a part of it since they were a part of the beginning.
Yeah, I couldn't find any information as to who was on each priority, but.
So it looks like here on the design teams. they're all
Oh,
listed
there,
like that.
okay, all right.
So down the
Yeah.
side. a
But
lot of
I
people
think
are
there
still
needs to
around.
be, in those teams, there wasn't any, there were some district people, but I think the person that oversees that area, it would be very beneficial to educate them. Just example for safety and security. Okay, TEA, here's the parameters of that, here's the safety school link, here's the training our people go through, here's what our schools are trained to do. I think it would be great to have that person over that committee almost to guide us. We can make those, each person in our district administration, the consultant of that area.
Well, and
I mean,
that's
that's just
a
my
That's a
suggestion.
classic example of an area that's completely changed from when they
And
were
so is
thinking
curriculum.
about this, because
So-
now we have to have a, armed guard on every campus, and so.
So what I'm hearing is that, one, we want to get a progress update. Two, okay, let me find my notes. Maybe we start with, the 5-year, the flow chart, so everybody knows how that fits together. And we update the committee.
Yep.
And
Could
then
they
you got,
take, if we said, like, they give the update first,
okay,
and then would we say, like, the green ones are gonna come off of the list? And what remains is the yellow? And
Well,
then
I-
we need to decide on the rest, and then they're gonna add new things to the list to keep it going. Because if you look at, like, develop critical thinking skills, and the 4 things that are under it, 3 of them are green. And so we're now saying that PLCs are the only thing that are gonna develop critical thinking skills, and that's gonna get us to 65% on reading.
well, that's why I'm saying, I really think it's important that we have our curriculum person sit with this team and say, here's how we get there. We will take, the priority, but we will develop it with our team
New stuff.
to get there. And to me, it's just word choice. Here's where we want to get, but here's the things we're doing to get there. And, we've created dashboards, PD training, different, the state is now providing reading academies. There's so many things that could be the strategic ways that we get there. And so I don't think the green would go away. I think it would just be a continuing. And we can get rid of the colors. I just was trying to figure out
I love
how,
the colors.
I like the colors.
how to measure it.
I think it shows, it's an easy to
Yeah.
identify,
Easy to read.
measuring, progress.
Green is still go.
And I think it's still important to keep the green to also show the
How much we've done.
accomplishment.
Right.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
if you take away the green, then
all you have is this yellow and red, and people easily forget what's
Yeah.
been accomplished.
Well, it's not like
or-
this work is
Or
gonna
what we're
stop.
still
No.
Right,
doing,
right.
yes,
You know,
yes.
Yeah,
so-
like number 4, reduce the percentage of students receiving tier 2 and tier 3 instruction. All 5 action steps are green. Have we reached our goal? Then are we continuing those, or are we replacing them with new steps?
Well, we started intervention programs and monitoring data, so I think that we can make them, some of the ways we're accomplishing that specific with attachments. So that's what I'm thinking, but I think it is gonna take the person that's leading that because they're doing so much. And I didn't see that in the document. I saw the teams, what I was trying to say, I saw the teams, but nobody from our district administration was listed as the, but I think that's where you start. I do think this is how you start it, and then now we can say, but here's how we're doing that. So,
All right. Any other comments?
so you guys, if you have any other thoughts, just write them down, and you
Again,
don't have to
thank
put your
you
name
for
on
your,
them, you just,
thank you for your great work on this and for
Sure.
helping to move us forward on
Okay.
that. Appreciated. Next item on our agenda is to take a look at our legislative priorities. District will advocate for several things. I'm going to turn first the meeting over to Ileana, who will discuss her role as the TASB delegate and legislative priorities there. So, Ileana?
Alrighty. I'm not, just give me a second, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. So when we met, the second time they gave us when we initially met in April, the priorities, there was a lot, and almost too many for TASB. So the majority of the trustees that went said that they wanted to reduce it to 2. They decided that it would be invest in students, and this is what they suggested. TASB calls upon the Texas legislature to invest in students, which includes supporting students and properly resourcing all public school classrooms by increasing the basic allotment, biennially adjusting it to inflation and moving to an enrollment-based funding model, investing in teacher recruitment, retention, and development programs, ensuring all schools that receive state funding are held to the same transparency and accountability standards as public schools. And then the second big one was empower local communities. TASB calls upon the Texas legislature to empower communities to govern their schools by removing barriers that limit school board members from fulfilling their duties. Locally elected trustees must have the authority and flexibility to review timely updates to a meaningful, consistent, and transparent state accountability system, protect students and staff by implementing safety measures supported by state funding that meet the unique needs of their campuses and communities, including flexibility to address mental health needs and student behavior, and then advocate for their students and schools. So that was the LAC, the Legislative Advisory Council, but then Region 10 had 5, like big overall. It was include an inflation index in the basic allotment. So TASB, when we get together with the LAC, everybody goes with these specific region-based, and then you make a decision and narrow it down from there. So Region 10 was include an inflation index in the basic allotment, opposition to vouchers, education savings accounts, teacher recruitment, retention, and increased salaries, increasing the basic allotment, and revision or elimination of an A through F accountability system, or a local community-based accountability system. I mean, all of the regions have very similar across the board, but still, it's slightly different. I mean, some of them do recapture, others don't. Some of them are more concerned about teacher retention based on the outside districts. It kind of depends. So, having said that, Randy, at our legislative committee, presented a resolution, which we will look over, and I will let him
Okay,
Take it on.
we'll
Yeah.
pick that up in a little bit. Next thing, we'd ask Dr. Eldridge to tell us about priorities that she's learned about through the, if I can say it right, North Texas Public School Legislative Workshop.
that's a lot.
That's a mouthful.
So, it was great. When we were at Raise Your Hand Texas, I connected with Darren. He is the one of the chairs for the North Texas Legislative Workshop. Our district has never been a part of it. The districts in our area that are a part of it, Forney, Plano, all the Carrollton's never been, but Frisco, it was held in Frisco. So Brian and I went, and the categories that we came up with as a group of superintendents and leadership is school funding. I gave you guys the handout. School funding, accountability, school safety, and local control, and then other. So this was everything that was discussed. And what they're going to do, they're having a conference coming up in November, and we'll all get together again. But they are working on one website that all of us here in this area, Region 10, and their main point will be fund schools first. And they wanted to come up with a phrase that everybody would buy into, and it's funding schools first. Like, we need the funding. And so they're actually in the process right now of developing this North Texas legislative website, and with all of our input, and in a month or so, I think we're all going to take back what we decided is our priority. And they're going to define what, funding looks like, what it should be, what they've researched. And so they want everybody to remember fund schools first. And they're coming up with a logo, and we'll be a part of that. But at that meeting, which Brian and I attended, and it was very informative, again, I just gave you all the information. So I think it's important as we are a team to stay engaged in what priorities are in our own area and be a part of it, so that we do present it. And we are talking about funding our schools first, and giving our teachers a charge of what we want to see happen in the classroom through materials and retention. So these were just the main categories that we came up with as a group. So that's my report.
Great, thank you for that. Fund schools first. We'll have to get bumper stickers.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. Couple of things that we'll take a look at moving on, and I'm going to ask Cass to lead us in a little bit of discussion, thinking about the House bill that we want to fund, or not fund, that we want to support and help drive. But in addition to that, please take a look at the resolution. You all have a copy of it. We want to put that on the agenda for the October meeting and have the formal resolution of the board come to pass. That is supporting school staff and teachers, and you'll see the language. If there is anything that you see language-wise that you'd like to adjust or edit, it can be done. Let me know. Again, we're going to be putting that on the October agenda, and that moves fairly quickly here coming out. So that is a resolution that Keller ISD developed it. It has been adjusted slightly and is being used in a number of different school districts. Keller has said, yes, it's fine for you to use it. So rather than just steal their stuff, I called and asked them, and they said yes.
And I think to Randy's point, the reason that was started was to say we're behind our teachers 100% with everything that's going on. There was a task force that was started through TEA about teachers, and really through the North Texas Legislative Workshop, it was emphasized, take a stand for your teachers, because we're all fighting for the same teachers, but we want, as a district, to know, our teachers and staff to know that, we do everything we can to support them and to provide what they need. And everybody came up with a resolution. So that was the history behind
That's
that.
the history, and we want to be on record publicly saying, teachers and staff, you are important in CFB, and we want to support you. So that's what that resolution will be all about. Moving on, in the same vein, we want to be supportive, and this is where Cass has done a lot of really good work, and I asked her to help us think about the HB 4556 process and remind us a little bit about the process that we reviewed at Raise Your Hand Texas, about how bills get us put into place and move forward. So Cass, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. So what I have at the top of the handout that says 88th Legislative Session, House Bill 4656, is a screenshot of where House Bill 4656 ended in the 88th Legislative Session. So Kronda Timish authored it, and then you will see that there are 4 joint authors. And so a joint author is authorized by the primary author to join in on authorship, and you can only have a maximum of 4 joint authors. So what's really important about that is we got all 4, which means that there was a strong stance behind the bill that it was viable because we had 5 people author it, which is the maximum you can have. The next thing to note is the co-authors. So the co-authors are authorized by the primary author to join in on authorship, and we have, I didn't count them, but I think there's at least 15 there, and it's bipartisan. And so that's really important that this bill in the 88th session got bipartisan support, and it has a number of people on it. What's also important to know is that Kronda Timish won't be in office for the 89th legislative session. So if we were going to put the bill back through and try to gain some traction on the bill, you have to find somebody else to pick it up. And so when we were at Raise Your Hand Texas, I talked to Matthew Hall and said, you know, looking at this list and looking at who our representatives are, do you have a recommendation of who we might engage with? And based on who our reps are on that list that represent our area, Ben Bumgarner came to the surface because Julie Johnson's also not going to be in office. Rafael Anchia is not on this list. So based on who represents CFP ISD, their recommendation was Ben Bumgarner. And then all of the authors and the co-authors all come out of the House because it's a House bill, but then the sponsor is on the Senate side. And so the sponsor is the legislature who guides the bill through the opposite chamber. So Tan Parker signed on as a sponsor of the bill when it went over to the Senate side. And so we would want to engage with Tan again since he had already sponsored it. So to get into the 89th legislative session, the first thing we have to do is get people to author the bill again. And so based on the recommendation of Raise Your Hand Texas, I connected with Ben Bumgarner. He is up for re-election, but so long as he stays in, we're in a good position. And so I connected with him, and he said he did want to pick it up. And so I've been in contact with Greg Klein, which is Nancy Klein's son, who's his chief of staff. And they have already put the bill into the attorneys for a rewrite. Which means that we are in a position to where they would be willing to put the bill in on the very first day of the legislative session opening, which is the day after the election. So the next step from Greg, when I connected with him, because typically you work with a staffer, was, do you guys have revisions for the bill you would recommend? And I am not an HR expert. So the purpose of the bill is to create a temporary educator certification for educators that are certified out of the state. And so last legislative session, when we worked on this bill, I was kind of engaging with the legislator to get the bill going and to keep the process going, but I really relied on Randy Davis and the administration under HR because I'm not going to go testify. I'm not an HR expert. And then Randy Davis really connected with a HR association, the state association, and that's one of the other reasons why we got so many people behind it, is because we started building connections and saying, hey, will you co-author this bill? Will you jump in on this bill? And so it was the work that the HR department did that really helped us get the co-authors, along with the El Tasby group, who went to Austin, and when we went from office to office, we said, will you co-author this bill? And we were actively asking. So we're really engaging the process to get as many co-authors as possible, which is what got us to this place where this bill had so much traction. So I met with Tammy on Wednesday. She's our HR assistant superintendent, and Tammy is taking a look at the bill. She sees some things that we could maybe adjust. One specifically being she wants to look at the definition of educator and make sure that it includes counselor and, so teachers, counselors, librarians, that were the definition of educator. She wants to look at the reference codes to that and make sure that it actually includes the maximal people that we can include. And she's gonna dig into it a little bit more. And so what we're waiting on at this point is for Greg to send the draft bill to us so that we can provide additional input. And so Randy is engaged now, and Dr. Eldridge and Tammy. And so all I've done is said, okay, Greg, let us know when you have it, and Tammy's gonna take over now. She's gonna help look at the draft and see what adjustments she might recommend as an HR expert. She might connect with the state education, or not the state education, like the HR organization, and get their input to try to strengthen the bill even more now that it's been 2 years. And so that is kind of where it's at. But the other thing that's important is the idea of a companion bill. So last year, or in the 88th when we put it in on the House side, and it has to go all the way through the House and then into the Senate, and then it has to go all the way through the Senate. And it was great that TAN picked it up as a sponsor, but there's another route you can take, and that route is that you put a bill in on both the House and the Senate side, and it's when and those are called companion bills. And that's when a bill is filed in one chamber that's identical or very similar to a bill filed in the opposite chamber. And then those bills can expedite passage because they can actually go through the entire process on both sides, and then they meet in the middle. So the idea is if Tan Parker's office will engage with us and we can get a companion bill on both sides and start them in November instead of January, then it's a lot more likely to get through the whole process.
Right.
So I've reached out based on Greg recommended a contact at Tan Parker's office because the person that I had in contact last time is no longer there. And so Greg gave me a new contact, and so I've contacted him, and I'll keep working that contact to try to get us to get a sponsorship on that side. And so the main next steps that I see for the board is this process for House bills. And I printed the process for House and the process for Senate, so you basically can see it's the exact same thing on page 2 and page 3. So it has to be filed and read, and then it has to go to committee. Then the committee has to vote it out of committee, which we want a positive vote. And then it goes out to the floor for multiple readings. So there's a lot of steps the bill has to go through, which is where it ultimately got caught up last time, was in a step. And so from my experience, how the board can best engage in this is once it gets filed, it would be great if we were identifying additional representatives that could file onto the bill, and that can be done in a lot of ways. It can be friends that you know across the state, people you've met on the LAC, people that you've met on the LAC, different board members that have different representatives, and you tell them, hey, can you contact your rep and ask them if they'd be willing to co-author this? And then we just want to champion the process, which it will go itself, but there's a few key things, which is the first one is getting it into committee. And to get it into committee, sometimes you have to nudge some representatives, hey, can you get this into committee for me? It really needs to go in committee. And so I am happy to do that process, but this is a win for public ed if we can get this through. It's taking a year right now to get out-of-state teachers through the system, and it's not necessary to take a year. Like, we just want teachers in the classroom
Yeah,
teaching
and
that
that
are highly
is
qualified.
hurting us and slowing down our hiring process.
Yes.
And has forced us to have some crazy, substitute arrangements, et cetera, whereas we had the people online to hire.
Mhm.
And so getting this bill in is important.
I think the big one was too, our counselors that we had to approve because their out-of-state certification wasn't transferred over, and, they'd already been working with our kids. So I think this is critical.
So at this point, my thought is Randy's in the loop on it, and so I'm gonna keep Randy in the loop. And we're waiting on Ben Bumgarner's office to send the bill to us, but we're in a really good position that they have already filed with the attorneys, and are gonna be ready to file in November. So if you see Ben, thank him for engaging us. Once we get a number on the bill, then we can speak to the actual number.
Yeah, he was in our Creekview homecoming parade today.
Good.
So if you want to send him an email that says, hey, thanks for supporting Creekview, remember we're blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and then the same with Tan's office. If you see Tan or a staffer of Tan's, hey, we know you did this last time. We'd really love to keep working with you. And then I'll keep Randy updated, and Randy will make a decision about when to keep the board updated.
Cass, thank you for your good work on this. We got to get it done. There are any number of districts besides CFB who are also interested in this and working on it, and we just got to get the legislature to step up and say, hey, it's here.
It's going to happen this time.
Yeah.
Have confidence.
Yeah. So from a legislative standpoint, we believe that the resolution which we intend to agendize for October needs to go forward. And then we want to have the other focus on HB 4656. One of the things I think that is significant, and we will, we haven't talked about it as a committee, but we are getting ready and we're looking, as we said from our last meeting, looking for different things we need to do. Another area that I believe would be extremely useful to us would be, and I noticed that it is the group that you are a part of, and it really becomes a question out of Ileana's information to us too, is to base funding on enrollment versus attendance. And I think that would be a big deal to have it consistent rather than, well, we staffed for 10,000 and today we have 5,000 and so we get ADA for that. So that's something we'll take a look at and see if there are ways we can find to support that process.
Do you think that should be added to the resolution?
I don't know. I'm not experienced enough with resolutions or issuing. Like, I haven't talked to Ben's office or anybody say, what do you see we need to do? We're concerned about this as well. So I think initially we won't attach it and let it come up naturally another way.
I think that's going to be a topic discussed at our next North Texas meeting.
Is that North Texas group arranging like a trip to Austin with
Yes,
superintendents and board
I think
members?
so.
Okay.
I think that'll, I mean, we've all kind of discussed it, but nobody's, I think that that is probably on the table. I mean, we've all discussed it in our little groups. That'll probably be a priority, for sure. I know our city of Carrollton's planning on going.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when El Tasby went to Austin, I took like a one-pager that was from CFB, from the priorities that we had adopted, and then went and highlighted one of them and said, hey, we really need your help with this, and it's associated to X bill. Are we planning on writing priorities that would facilitate that?
Yes.
Okay.
You guys had a committee meeting about that, right? You
Well,
and,
We didn't talk about that.
okay.
All we
no.
talked about was this.
Okay.
And it was presented by Randy. That's it.
Okay, so that probably.
There are some 2022 legislative and even I know I've done 2 sets of legislative priorities at least, so there's documents that have.
2022?
Our legislative priorities would reflect those directly from Region 10 and from task.
And that-
They should all be
yeah.
the same. It's part of the problem.
I mean,
The
they
topics
are,
and the
it's
content
all
Type
were on our
things, same thing.
2022, but we tweaked just if it was
Okay, we
specific to
can-
CFB.
Well,
Yeah.
it just helps if we're all saying the same thing
Yeah,
over
they
and
will.
over
Yeah.
and over again.
But it helps to have our logo on it,
Yeah.
Oh,
to
that's
say
fine.
like, we are behind this.
Absolutely. But
So
just
I
saying the
guess
same
I
thing
can go
over and
back
over.
to the subcommittee and say develop, as a role and responsibility, I'll put develop
Legislative
little
priorities.
priorities
Yes.
for CFB.
And out of curiosity, I think that you had a discussion about this I don't remember when, but possibly meeting with reps and also area superintendents all together versus us creating our own meeting. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we talked about it. I know Cass and I talked about it too. You know, that's one of the things, that's why this council has come together, because everybody wants to work on the same thing. And now, so they're putting together a conference. When is that conference, Brian? November? It's coming up. I know we're going. And I think it's in November so that we can all develop and, you know, because you can call and try to schedule them, but it's more power in numbers. So I think going to Austin, seeing what we can do there, and really developing our priorities. I think with the legislative year coming, they're not gonna, I don't know that we can get them to come to every district. I think we're gonna have to all work together, and that's
Right.
the purpose of the legislature. I would love to, because
Oh,
I think it's,
No, I think we were leaning towards the going, like
Yeah.
Like a
camaraderie.
bigger
Yeah,
thing,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but we put it on the list as you know, we need a presence as a school district.
Yeah.
And since we're so.
A website, a part on the website, and what we stand for, and all of that.
But I think what's also really good to be thinking about is this idea of co-authors. Because if a bill gets filed that supports public ed, then our job is really to contact our reps and say, House Bill this, you're not a co-author, and we need you to co-author it because this is our legislative priority and you represent our district. And if you can get them as a co-author, they're supporting it.
Right, and this is very much a nonpartisan bill.
Exactly.
So we are looking for, dare we say, Democrat and Republican both. Yeah, we're looking for folks from both sides of the aisle to say we support public ed.
Whether it's this bill or another bill, like when bills get filed, if we can monitor some bills and push people to sign on as co-authors and get their support, the more co-authors you have, the more likely it is to get pushed through.
Right. And it is a good time to reach out. I realize they're in the middle of campaigning, but if you can find time to get together at any level with them, phone call or whatever, to get them thinking this way and get them on board, because if they get elected or re-elected, whatever the case, then you've already opened the door, hopefully.
And maybe I'm thinking too far in advance, but do we have a plan as our district for Austin?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Mm.
I mean, it is September, but as a board, would we have a plan implemented? Or is that a discussion for the committee?
I think that's a discussion for the committee, so do you want me to add
Thank
that
you,
too? I'll put that under your role,
Go ahead and
plan,
put that on there.
plan,
Legislative
Keeps getting longer.
engagement.
Oh, that's a perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for your words today.
I know, plan legislative engagement. Okay,
Thank you.
or local. Okay, I got you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Other comments, discussion?
So
Thank-
Randy, I'm sorry, the resolution, you want us to all take a look at it?
Yeah, please take,
And give
remember
you
you're
feedback.
taking a look at if there's any, suggested
When does it get
edits
published?
or whatever. Get them back to us by the middle of next week.
Well, ask Dee, when do you need them if it's gonna go to the board? When?
Post on Friday, so I'll need it by like Wednesday.
Next Friday?
Yeah.
By next
So-
Wednesday.
If we get, if I get, get the stuff together, then we can do any collating that we need to do with it and get it.
Would that be in the board memo on Friday as a reminder?
Please.
Just a comment, and I had mentioned this the other day, Randy, on, following from our last board meeting, I really think we need to identify an agenda for data review and discussion and where we're gonna narrow our focus. I mean, I thought that was the outcome from our regular board meeting, that's what we were gonna do, have that discussion tonight, but I mean, that kind of discussion and data, where do we see, what are we seeing? Do we understand it? What are our things? How do we approach it? Discussing as a board, so we can figure out if we need to change our priorities or our goal. But I'm not gonna ask that, I think that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Okay, can you rewind specifically, like on,
I mean, from our regular board meeting, the other night,
Oh.
we sat there and had comments about discussing the data together as a board and
Oh,
looking at
gotcha,
what
okay.
there was. We talked about this work study, where did we see, really understanding what we were looking at as a board, so we could all collectively say, because everybody focuses on something different.
Right.
So, I think the discussion, if I misunderstood my comments or others' comments at the regular board meeting, let me know, but that's how I walked away.
I think we need to get that noted, and we'll take a look and see what we can do, because it does need to happen fairly soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna drive adjustments to superintendent goals if we're gonna narrow our focus in.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Other comments?
A lot of information, good meeting.
Well, then I
What are the
believe
colors?
we've reached the end of our agenda, and I banged my yellow pen to start, and we'll bang it again, and we're dismissed.